Hey guys, thank y'all for tuning into this session of the IDS Department, Interdisciplinary Studies. My name is Andres De Torres. I'm an admissions counselor here at Faulkner University, and I'm very excited for this session. I really am. Whenever I go to college fairs, I always, present the business department, biology department, kind of different departments, and then I throw in there, IDS, and I say Interdisciplinary Studies, and everybody goes, what is that? So I'm really excited for this session. Hopefully y'all will learn a lot. I know I'm very excited to learn a lot. With me, I have Dr. Walker. She is the director of the IDS department. And we're just going to be asking her some questions, hopefully some questions that will answer y'all's questions when it comes to the IDS department. That's right, 3 questions in a row.
3 questions in a row.
All righty, so we're going to start with the first one, kind of simple for you. What about Faulkner drew you to its campus?
Well, I graduated from Faulkner in 1984. And then I moved to Texas in '86 and did my master's and my PhD while I was there, and moved back to Birmingham. And my husband was at UAB, and an opening came open in the English department. And so they called me and said, "Are you interested?" So the first year I commuted from Birmingham, and then we moved down here, and I've been here since 1997. So a long time.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
That's awesome. Now you are the director of the IDS department, but
Yes.
you have some other roles here on campus. What else do you do?
Well, I teach in the English department, and then as necessary, I will jump over into the education department and teach for them some. And I'm also the faculty athletic representative, which means that I make sure that all of the athletes stay academically eligible in order to continue to compete. And so I work with them on tutoring and making sure they're going to classes and making grades and making sure we're in compliance with our NAI.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important, and thank you for doing that. I know it can be very, it can be hassle, it can be very busy, but I appreciate you doing that. So kind of let's get into the IDS. I know a lot of people are kind of wondering, what is that? So what is the IDS department, and how does it work?
Okay, well, Interdisciplinary Studies is a new program. It just started 4 years ago, which we brought it in because we saw that a number of students were going, we want to do filmmaking, or we want to do athletic training, or those types of degrees that we just didn't have. In fact, I have one now that wants to be a curator at a museum. And so what we do is we talk to you, and I say, well, tell me about your long-term goals, and if you had the perfect job, what would you do? And we just have an engaging conversation. And if we have a degree plan here, I say, this is where you need to go. But if we don't have a very clear degree plan for you, then what I say is, okay, now let's talk about the areas that you want to study further in order to be ready for this position. So for example, we have a student who wants to go in and be a coach because he came from a very poor area of Alabama and a lot of gangs. And he said, athletics led me to this desire to be a coach, because had these coaches not had an influence on me, then I would be dead right now. And he talks about his friends that have already died in drug-related murders and overdoses, those types of things. And he said, but I also know that it's not just coaching. I have to understand the psychological side of it and be able to get into their minds. And so he's majoring in IDS, and he's studying psychology and physical education so that he can go in and work with youth and use sports to enhance their ability to get out of those areas that they don't want to continue living in and not get involved in gangs and drugs. We have another student who, she has ADHD really, really bad, and she always thought she was going to be a choral director. And then she realized that she can tie in counseling and psychology with music. And so she's going to become a music therapist to help other students or youth, or any age, of course, that have ADHD or other problems, and use music therapy to work with them. And so we have a large gamut of those. But what we do is you and I sit down and I talk about that. You talk about what you want to do. And then we choose 2 or 3 areas. We call them cognates that we have either a major or a minor in on this campus. And then we put those together to create your own individualized degree plan. So every student that comes through the IDS program has their own degree plan, and no one's looks the same. Now, you take the same core courses, of course, that every student at Faulkner takes, but then when you get into your major areas, instead of majoring in just psychology, we put together courses in psychology that fit your long-term goal. We have 2 that are going into physician assistant programs, and they looked at our science programs and they were like, oh, but I need all these psychology classes and I need these statistics classes. And so they've come to me to go into a PA program, and we go, if you're going to graduate school, we look at what the graduate schools are expecting, and then we make those your cognate areas so that you go in not having to take extra classes here, because that can add a year or 2 to what you're having to already do, but we make sure that you're ready for grad school. And I'm proud to say that we have 100% acceptance in grad school.
Wow.
And that's amazing in this day and age. And we have them at Auburn and Alabama State and other schools that are very difficult to get into. And some of them are on full rides, which means even more because they're being given honor to their abilities coming out of this program.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's amazing. And now I know other programs, other colleges are doing the IDS as well. So I guess, what is something that's special about our IDS that maybe some other programs don't really do?
Well, a lot of schools are doing IDS now. In fact, it's one of the largest, fastest growing programs in the nation because companies and organizations are looking for well-rounded students, not just very focused in a box, this is the only answer student. But what we provide ours is a lot of hands-on. So in their introduction to IDS, we spend all semester doing group work where I throw out a problem and we talk about it from the multiple perspectives to come up with a real world solution to it. And then they take that information, and when they go into their senior year and write their thesis is not just a generic, I've written all this information based on my research, but they have to define a real world problem that they want to pursue. And so then that's what they write about. And so they're very personalized theses instead of just research-based theses. For example, like we had one student and he is now working in the physical training area. And so he created this pseudo character, 50-year-old man that was overweight, had a lot of health problems, and he created a whole program for this person to get healthy. And he looked at what they were eating, he looked at their exercise, he looked at the mental side of breaking these bad habits, and that's what he wrote about in his thesis. So we make sure that that thesis is very personalized to the students' long-term goals and meaningful to them, so it's not a busy work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's incredible to be able to adapt and do that for the students. If y'all are really interested in the IDS, I do appreciate y'all kind of listening. I think we're going to be able to cover a lot of things that are very important. And one thing that I think students kind of ask me on that is, are you still able to graduate in 4 years if you're doing 3, if you're adding kind of 3 different departments into that?
Right.
Your plan.
I'm going to be honest. I'm a cheapskate. Okay. And college is expensive. I don't care whether you go to Faulkner or Auburn or wherever. College is expensive. Yeah. And so we sit down and I will map out and give you that map. And if you will stay with that map, you will get out in 4 years. We write down every class you're going to take every semester. And so you have this sheet and it's just blocks. It has 8 blocks on it. And we have what you're doing every semester so that we have you out of here in 4 years. Now, if you fail a class, I can't fix that. You may have to do some summer school, but we map that out first thing. That's because that's very important to me that you have that long-term goal. And when you see that I'm going to graduate on X date, and I tell them all the time, so your new hashtag is graduation 2020. And that way, that's always in the forefront of their mind going, hashtag graduation 2020 or 2024. They know they have that target date. And so when you get tired and you think, I'm so tired of this, I don't want to do it anymore. that's in your mind. And I tell my children growing up, you can do anything for X amount of time. And that's what I tell my IDS majors. They're my children too, but people don't like me to hear you say that. But I tell them that all the time. And when you have that end goal in sight, then you obviously can make it. And so you just push a little harder to get there. Yeah.
And you kind of hinted at this a little bit in the beginning, but what are some common degree combinations that people kind of use through the IDS department?
Well, probably the most common would be the psychology and the business and the PE.
Okay.
A lot of our students want to go into sports management, type fields, but they don't want to do sports management degree because that's not exactly what they want to do. We partner very, very closely with our Faulkner Sports Network, and even those students who don't have any interest in sports, or they can still get great experience, because what they do is they're in there working with Faulkner Sports Network. They're doing films. The 2 students that I have right now that want to be filmmakers work for them, and they're creating a great portfolio of work, a body of work that you will not get anywhere else. And so they leave with that. We have them writing. They write the stories for the follow-up stories. They write the pregame stories. They do all kinds of hands-on learning. And so that fits them, and they do the business because of the marketing side of it. So they take all marketing classes, and they learn how to market themselves, and they learn how to market others, because we have a couple that want to go into be sports agents. And then they have to understand, though, if they're going into sports, all of the rules of the games, and you can't just say, well, I played football, so I know it. So you have to learn all of them. And so that's why they do the PE. But there's also a psychological side to that, of working with people. And psychology is probably one of our biggest that more students go to, that don't want just a straight psychology degree, but they understand that, seeing how the human mind works and how we make decisions and we pick ourselves up and all of that would be very relevant to whatever they're going to do. And Dr. Guy is great to work with our students, because he sees that. And in fact, he sends a lot of psychology majors over to me, because he'll get to talking to them and he'll go, wait, you need a broader background than just psychology. And so he'll talk to them and then send them over.
Yeah, no. And kind of going off of that, what is the benefit of doing the IDS track rather than maybe double majoring?
Okay, double major, you have to complete the requirements for all of the major. So most majors have a 42 to 48 hour component versus a 15 or 21 hour component for us. And so the other issue is, with the double major, you have to take what they tell you. Whereas with an IDS major, even if you're taking 21 hours, you and I and the department head sit down and go, okay, this is what this student wants to do, and this is how psychology is going to impact us. So we handpick those upper level classes for you, instead of you just taking all of the upper level classes that are required for that major. It also gets you out a little faster, because if you double major and you have to take 48 hours of psychology and 48 hours of business, that's an extra year. And so that's how we keep you from doing that extra years. Year is due in 21 and 24. But those are specialized, handpicked. You can't just take any class because it's an easy class or because it fits your schedule. We have already pre-decided what you need in order to be effective in your long-term goals. And so those are the upper level classes you take. Yeah,
and I think that's the most, I guess, confusing aspects or questions that I get from students are, if we're double major, it must be the same as a, double majoring if you're going to take all these, but, it's selective classes that y'all choose for students to be able to kind of graduate still in 4 years with that track. I think that's incredible. So what are some odd job opportunities that come from doing, the IDS department?
The world is at your fingertips. And I know people think she's just making that up, but we really have students doing a little bit of everything. And if I showed you my graduation list for the last 4 years, I have one that's managing a restaurant, and I have another one that's working in retail and has been promoted since December into a management position and that's what he likes. And then he coaches on the side because those are his passions. And then we have others who are doing marketing in locations. We have some that are teaching at private schools that really are liking that. So it's just a little, and I have a lot in grad school. And so it's just a little bit of everything. And it's really neat.
I have a friend who's doing the IDS department, and he's wanting to kind of open up his own store online. So he decided to do kind of the business aspect, but kind of mix it with the computer science to kind of get that, kind of knowing how that is. So I think that's very unique, very distinct that people are able to do that. People are able to kind of choose a department and say, hey, I love this, but I also want to do this. But it kind of takes away the double majoring side of having to to spend maybe another year or something
Yeah.
like that. So I think that's incredible. And guys, if you're interested in maybe doing 2 things or 3 things, I highly suggest that you look into the IDS department because, like you said, the world is at your fingertips. The opportunities, the degree that you get is very versatile. A lot of people love that. So I think that is great.
And let me jump in there just a little bit, because not only do we do that, but then what IDS teaches you is how to deal with problems from a global perspective. And so, for example, let's look at the issue of, I just went blank. Anyway, the issue of minimum wage.
Yeah.
And we spent a whole week talking about minimum wage, and then we looked at what it's like to live on minimum wage, and they had to create budgets for minimum wage, and they had to look at the psychological aspect of living on minimum wage and having to have roommates maybe, or having to go get assistants or whatever. What is life like for them? Now, how do we help that problem? And then do we look at it, do we raise everyone to $15 an hour like they're talking about, or do we look for other solutions? And so we do that every week. We have a new problem every week, and we look at that from a global perspective. And when you come into your introduction to IDS class, we have probably every major on campus represented in that class. And so not only are you studying and making decisions within your own realm, the students are like, wow, I had not thought about this. I had not thought about it from this perspective. I hadn't. And so then they're getting other students' perspectives. And so that's very important too, because you come into it and you learn how to tie those degrees together instead of having an individualized, specialized degree. You learn how to integrate. I tell students all the time, you're not a salad bowl. When you leave the IDS program, you've made a smoothie, and you've taken your cognate areas and you've blended them together to create this smoothie that's drinkable and that's tastes good and that's very marketable to other people. We have such a problem today with people in tunnel vision and lack of communication. That's why we're having issues, because we're not communicating well, because we have tunnel vision instead of looking outside the box and then applying different areas and taking that silo away. And so that's what IDS does. It takes those silos away and removes that tunnel vision and helps you to think in a global perspective and tie everything together.
Yeah, no, you're able to, I guess, individualize what you want to do,
Right.
which each student's kind of going through it. They're able to kind of make it their own.
Yes.
And I think that's so special. I think that's awesome. So something really cool about here at Faulkner is we're a private Christian college, and our faith is very important. We try to incorporate it a lot of ways. So how does the IDS department make sure that faith-based learning is incorporated in the curriculum?
First of all, I'll be honest, I'm the driving force behind IDS right now. I am the only professor in the program teaching the IDS classes. Now, you get perspectives from other areas, but my faith is very important to me. I firmly believe that we need to be professors who are Christians and not Christian professors, because Christian professors come in and they can quote the Bible, but the students don't see them living it.
Right.
And professors who are Christians, that's a lifestyle. Christian is who they are.
Yeah.
It's not just a name that they wear. And so we have great discussions about that. And even in class, the students come to my house several times a year, and we see how being a Christian drives every decision that we make. We have those discussions. One student wrote his thesis on how to be a coach who is a Christian, not a Christian coach. And people were just astounded at what he wrote about, because they were like, I hadn't thought about that. But he said, when I walk out of here, and he's coaching at a junior college now, he said, I don't want people to say, oh yeah, he's a Christian, but that's not who he is.
Yeah.
And he works very hard to make sure that that's who he is. And they've determined that's who he is, not him telling them that's who he is. So I don't come into my students and go, oh, well, I'm a Christian and this is how we're going to do it. They see it by the way we live. And we have those discussions. We have open Bible discussions. And we don't always agree on stuff. Yeah. But we each talk about how we bring our own perspectives to that. And then over and over and again, I'll always lead them back and say, tell me what the Bible says about this. and they'll laugh. And so I make them find scripture.
Yeah.
And it's pretty funny. I do that with my freshmen as well in freshman comp. And I say, you can't live off your parents' faith.
Yeah.
And it's
Very
time
true.
for you to define your faith. You can't listen to your youth minister or your minister. Not that they don't have truth, but if you can't find what they're saying to be truth, then it's not going to be a part of who you are. And that's where you need to be, is who are you and where are you in your faith walk based on what God's word says, because that ultimately is what's going to judge you. And so it's very important that we integrate and we start students thinking about that instead of, well, I've always gone to church here, or I've always believed this. That's great. I'm so glad that you did. I'm so glad your grandparents believe that and your parents believe that. Now tell me why. And that's what IDS does too, is we engage in the why. Why do people react this way? And how do we model for them maybe better behavior? Or is this really okay and we're just being judgmental? And so it's integrated in every aspect of the degree.
Yeah, and I think that's so amazing. Coming here at Faulkner when I was a freshman, you kind of hinted in the sense of, parents' faith. That's kind of how my faith was. It was my parents' faith. And I appreciated the business department kind of integrating, Christ-like education as well. But I mean, just the whole sense of it, it was very important for me, for my growth. So that y'all are doing that, I think it's incredible. Yeah. So kind of shifting gears here. So what are some internship opportunities that come from the IDS department?
We have multiple internships, and we base those. First, they can choose an internship through their department of their cognates, and we have some that do internships in each of their cognates as part of their coursework. And then primarily, though, what I try to get them to do, and then I work with the departments, is choose one area. So let's say I'll just pick on English because that's my background. But so pick this area. We'll do your internship through the English department. Now, how do we find this internship? And then I work with Dr. Wright in finding the right internship for the student that fits their long-term goals. And so we have one that's interning now with a trainer, because that's what they want to do. We have one that is interning at a radio station. We have one that's at a news television station. And then we have one that's working with an attorney. He wants to go into law school. And so he's doing psychology and law, but he sees the need for the psychology because he's like, I'm going to be dealing with people who are upset and angry or whatever. He said, I may even be dealing with criminals when I get out of law school. I don't know, but I need to understand the mindset. So that again goes back to the answer about psychology being one of the bigger ones, because they see the importance of that. But we have them all over but we strongly encourage that because it's so important to get those internships. And I've watched students over and over again who have taken internships and then been able to go into the field seamlessly versus those who have chosen not to do an internship, and then they struggle to find a job because they have no reference, they have no experience. So internships to me are one of the most important variables for one being successful after they get out of college and finding that right position. You may not stay at that position for the rest of your life, but it just gives you that foot in the door that will allow you to start and then move into the specific areas that you want to do.
Yeah, and I think something important that you said is experience. That is a big thing in this world. Is when you go to college, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to be spending a lot of time in the classroom learning textbooks and stuff like that. But the real world is not necessarily like that, is it?
You've found that out, haven't you?
Yeah, I have in the past year and a half. It's a little different. You have to experience stuff. You have to make sure that you know how the real world works. And I think y'all do a great job at that. I think that's awesome.
We try very hard, and if we're not doing it, then someone will speak up and go, you've lost your mind, and that's okay. We go, okay, let's back up and regroup and then go from there.
I think that's awesome. I think a question that I get as well is, if I switch my major, I'm my freshman year already happened, and I want to switch my major to the IDS when I'm a sophomore. How does that affect my graduation track?
That doesn't affect your graduation track at all. Okay. Now, the one issue that you will need to do is a lot of students want to get to their end of their junior year and go, oh, I can't graduate and I need to go to IDS. You can't do that because we require that you take the Introduction to IDS course, and then you have to wait 12 months before you can write your thesis. So you have to be here a full 2 years to complete that. So even if you're transferring in, you'll need to decide by the beginning of your junior year that you will do that. And the reason for that is a lot of schools found students drifting into the IDS major because they thought it would get them through faster, but you lose the whole scope and the importance of understanding life through the IDS eyes. And so by requiring you to take the Introduction to IDS your sophomore, junior year, first semester, and then when you're taking your upper level courses, then everything is working through that. In fact, in your Introduction to IDS class, we do ask that you kind of start thinking about your thesis and getting a topic so that when you're in your cognate area classes, that's in the back of your mind and you're going, oh yeah, this would be important for my thesis. So by the time you get to your last semester of college and you're ready to write your thesis, you have a lot of material and you have a lot of ideas and you're ready to hit the ground running with that thesis and make it meaningful, because you do have to take that problem and you have to tie in all of your cognate areas into solving that issue. And again, please don't get the thought that this is, I have to solve world hunger. I gave you a couple of examples just because we had one that took a football helmet that was new on the market and wrote a marketing plan for them and sold it to Pop Warner Football League parents. So he took his PE and he took his psychology and he took his marketing and he put it all together to create this plan. And so that's why it's important that you have that lag time from introduction to thesis. And so we do require you to have at least 12 months between those two courses. So you don't want to wait till your senior year, but you sophomore, junior year, we don't really even, I'll talk to students and I'll encourage them, but until they get to their sophomore year, it's not relative a whole lot because they're just taking their core courses anyway. Of course.
Yeah. And that's with anything. So now, what kind of students are y'all looking for to go into the IDS department? Like, is there a curriculum or something like that y'all go off for students?
No, I want a student who thinks outside the box. I don't want a student, now I'll take anyone, but the perfect IDS student would be one who brings to the table a multiplicity of perspectives, a multiplicity of experiences, and then is open-minded and willing to really explore. An IDS major is not as easy. A lot of people think, oh, it's just easy. I just have to take these 5 to 7 classes in these cognate areas. But you have to remind yourself, wait, the other students that are majoring in that area may have had 5 or 6 classes before they got to this upper level class that prepared them for that. And so it is a little tougher going into a class so if you've only had intro to psychology, but you haven't had any other psychology classes, and then I throw you in social psychology, there's a learning curve there that you're going to have to be responsible for picking up. And so it's just like you majored in business. And so if you just jumped into accounting without the business math, it would be difficult.
It would be.
But you have to be studious enough to pick that up and move from there and work with it. And that's what we expect of our majors, is to be diligent enough to solve the learning curve on their own. Now we'll help them, of course, but I'm just saying it's more difficult. I'm not going to lie, but the long-term rewards of it are so great that the students decide, it's really worth the extra effort that I have to make to pick that up. And we do try to we have electives. You have 16 hours of electives. So if I know you're majoring in some areas like criminal justice, then I make sure you get that intro class so you at least have some foundation on which to build when you take the upper level classes. But there may be 3 or 4 classes in between there that other students have taken. So some ideas may be very easy for them, but you're going to have to work a little harder at it. Yeah,
no, definitely. So guys, if there's something that she said that kind of stuck out to you, if you're that kind of open-minded, wants the world, IDS might be best for you. So that is all the time that we have for that. Dr. Walker, thank you so much. I do appreciate you coming here and talking about that. Hopefully you guys learned a lot. I know I did. So if you guys are interested to learn even more, go ahead, go to our website and go ahead and apply. If you are in the Montgomery area, there is a promo code up till October, the end of October. It is JR League. That is JR League, all capital, all together. And if you're kind of watching this on the outside, guys, go ahead and just apply. We will have some promo codes later, so be looking out for those. But again, thank you for your time.
No problem.
We really
Thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me.
Yeah, of course. And hopefully we'll see you on a visit. Soar Eagles.